Matheus Cunha to Manchester United is now at the advanced stage, and we are close to getting the famous "here we go." Amad Diallo is expected back in the United squad next week. It is highly likely Garnacho will leave, according to David Ornstein, who also gives an update on Mainu, Hojlund and Osman. United are interested in Ederson and have made contact with his camp, according to Romano. Scouts are watching a La Liga midfielder, and Man United do not want to make the same mistake with Mastantuono that they did with Julian Alvarez. All this plus more in today's video, and this is all the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that's going to keep you up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, and let's jump straight into it. Honestly, there's so much noise going on at the moment for all the... It's like somebody's given David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano some Red Bull because they are coming out with some absolute... really, really interesting updates regarding what's going on with United and transfer news and stuff as well. But let's start with the big breaking news. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Amad Diallo is set to be back in training with Manchester United squad already next week. Despite initial expectations for the season to be over after injury, he's recovered in record time. So Amad Diallo expected to be back with the Manchester United squad next week. Obviously, he's going to need some time to get his fitness, and they're not going to rush him straight back into their team and stuff. But that's a massive boost towards the end of the season to get Amad Diallo back to help us with the freaking Europa League kind of run. Like, we need to win that competition for me to salvage what has been, like my worst... the worst season I've witnessed in my lifetime. Absolutely horrendous. So getting someone like Amad Diallo back towards the end of the season will be a massive boost, I think. And hopefully by then, we're not out of things, and he's just coming back into meaningless Premier League games that don't really matter towards the end of the season. But yeah, massive boost. Smash a like on the video if you're happy to see Amad Diallo back with the Manchester United squad next week. Now let's move on to the transfer news. So obviously, talk of the town at the moment is Matheus Cunha. Been loads of updates regarding him over the last 24 hours. So Manchester United have an agreement in place for Matheus Cunha to join after the season ends. Manchester United will pay his 62.5 million release clause that came from Go Brazil. We're a good source for South American news. Fabrizio Romano said that Manchester United feel they can get the green light from Matheus Cunha soon. In terms of salary, contract and project, Amorim considers Matheus Cunha as a top player, top guy, and the perfect signing for Manchester United at this stage of his new project. Florian Plettenberg said that Manchester United are determined to finalise the deal for Matheus Cunha for the summer, though details still need to be clarified. Cunha is ready for the move. David Ornstein on a Q&A he did yesterday with The Athletic, saying that Matheus Cunha to Manchester United is still not technically close, but there is expectation it could develop pretty rapidly. And then another South American journalist, good source, say that Manchester United believe the deal for Matheus Cunha will be completed soon. Next week will be crucial. So all signs so far are just pointing towards this deal getting done early, which is insane to me because I cannot remember the last time Man United signed their top summer target before the season even ends and before the transfer window opens. Someone let me know in the comments, when was the last time United ever did a deal like that where we signed their number one priority target, which is Matheus Cunha, because he's seen as the perfect signing from those reports to come in and play that kind of in the forward position. And we know we're going to be we're prioritising the forward line as well. When was the last time we signed a player like that, our number one target, before the season even ended and before the transfer window even opened? I can't remember a deal like that being done for ages. So give us some shouts in the comments if you do. And then Fabrizio Romano's had loads to say overnight, saying that negotiations for Matheus Cunha to Manchester United are now at advanced stages. United are confident to get the deal done. Formal steps will follow. Manchester United are prepared to pay the £62 million release clause in instalments over several years. And he's also said that Manchester United will have a new round of talks very soon to try to get the deal done with Matheus Cunha. A here we go is really, really possible soon. And then he also said that Manchester United need at least one more meeting to fix some details for the Matheus Cunha. The talks are very advanced. So over the last 24 hours, the expectation is that, or the kind of noise around Matheus Cunha is that it's accelerating fast. United are not messing around. None of these kind of long drawn out kind of, sagas regarding transfers and stuff. I suppose Cunha is a bit of an easier deal to do because he does have a release clause. By all accounts, he wants to come. We obviously want him. We see him as a priority in that as well. So I suppose in that terms, it is maybe a little bit of an easier deal to do, but still, massively exciting. He's obviously, I think he's going to be a good player for us as well. Watching his kind of, all of his highlights, reading all of his kind of stats and data and stuff like that as well. I really like this deal. I really do. There are concerns, but there's concerns with every transfer. But, I trust the kind of people in charge, and Ruben Amorim specifically as well, because he doesn't just want players in, he wants characters in as well. If you look at his kind of rebuild that he did at Sporting, some of the players that he let go were big players but apparently weren't the right personalities behind the scenes as well. So he's clearly, I think they would have done their homework regarding that as well. But I'm excited for Cunha. I think he does kind of come in and instantly improve our attack and our forwards on our forward line, and that's exactly what we need, because that's the area of the pitch where we are absolutely inept at the moment. We've got the second worst attack in the Premier League, and that's embarrassing for a club of our size to not have not even mid-table level forwards. So Matheus Cunha, I think, instantly improves us. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. I'm going to kind of go through the rest of those. There's loads to go through. So, but yeah, give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Be interesting to hear what you think about Matheus Cunha down below. So I'll enjoy reading those later. Now, David Ornstein on his Q&A clarified a couple of things. So firstly, we'll move on to the striker situation now. So David Ornstein said on why Osimhen was not on the agenda for Man United. He said the feeling amongst most Premier League clubs that have looked into the possibility seem to be that the salary expectations are difficult to meet, and he is perhaps not the player or character they are looking for at present. So that's interesting from Ornstein, kind of confirming, maybe character, but then also wages, which is what we've been saying. I know some of you have been saying that in the comments as well. Unless he lowers his wage demands, I don't think there's going to be many teams outside of the Saudi Pro League that are going to be able to afford and offer him that kind of contract as well. And that's where all roads seem to be pointing towards at the moment. But it's nice to get a bit of clarity on Victor Osimhen. But yeah, give us your thoughts on Victor Osimhen in the comments. Now, one of the strikers that we are obviously invested in is Liam Delap. The Telegraph was saying that Newcastle are looking to sign Manchester United target Liam Delap this summer. And then David Ornstein again on his Q&A said there are no favourites as of yet for Liam Delap. He will make a decision before the under-21 Euros. His next destination will become apparent over the next month or so. I have read a story this morning suggesting that maybe Chelsea feel confident of getting the deal done and feel that they're a little bit ahead of the race. And, it's interesting because if we've pulled out of like the Osimhen deal and stuff, if we don't get Liam Delap, who's the kind of backup to that? Is it someone like Patrick Schick? Is it Mateta? Obviously, we were linked with players like that as well. Retegui was one we were linked with from Atalanta the other day as well. That's not a bad shout either. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if Delap doesn't go. But have United already, they must be confident, surely, if they've kind of starting to pull out deals for other strikers. That's what I keep thinking. But obviously we never know in the transfer market. We never know when we're competing with Chelsea, because we were probably confident we were going to go for Kender, and now we don't. But yeah, give us your thoughts on Liam Delap in the comments. So Manchester United have discussed Ederson during a meeting with club directors and Ruben Amorim. United made contact with the players' camp a few months ago to show their interest. He is seen as one of the ideal midfield candidates. Now that came from Fabrizio Romano, so confirming that the interest is genuine in Ederson. Discussed it in a meeting with club directors and Amorim. United have made contact with the players' camp a few months ago, so this is one to keep an eye on. He also said that Atalanta want more than 45 million euros for Ederson, which works out about 38 million pounds roughly for those that work in pounds. I don't think that's a bad price for Ederson personally. And then he also said overnight that Ederson is a dream target for Manchester United. Dream target for United and is being considered as perfect player for Amorim. They also know how tough it is to negotiate with Atalanta, so this is not a deal that can happen quickly. Let's see if they have the financial power to go for it. So that's interesting from Fabrizio Romano also saying, so he said that Cunha is seen as a perfect target for Amorim, and now saying that Ederson is the dream target for United in the midfield. Give us your thoughts on that below. This is one that kind of, like Romano says, not going to be, maybe we do need to wait for player sales and bits to maybe go for an Ederson, so it's not going to be like a Cunha deal that we potentially are going to get done before the transfer window even opens. But that's really interesting. What are your thoughts on Ederson? I think he'd be a good partner for Ugarte in midfield. I think you could even partner him with Bruno in midfield as well for certain games. I actually really like Ederson. I think he's a bit of an all-rounder midfield and would suit the system brilliant, because we need legs in that midfield, and he's got legs in abundance, where he's got that kind of energy to get himself around the pitch as well, decent on the ball. Do you know what I mean? A very good all-round midfielder, I think, Ederson, and he's clearly one that we're interested in, because we've been linked with him for a couple of years now. It's just obviously always the asking price has always been like 60, 70 million euros and stuff, but now if you're talking 45 million or 38 million pounds, it's not exactly like if you look at Adam Walton, who would be another midfielder that I really, really like, how much are you going to pay to get him out of Crystal Palace? You're going to be talking 60, 70, 80 million. Like, it's going to be a ridiculous outlay. So that's actually, I think it would be a decent price for Ederson, but let me know what you think about Ederson in the comments. So that's one to definitely pay attention to. Dream target, seen as the perfect player for Amorim as well. So let's see how that kind of develops over the next few weeks. Now, another midfielder that we've been linked with is, in recent weeks, Manchester United have been scouting Real Betis midfielder Johnny Cardoso. Now, that's again from Sam C, who's a good source as well, suggesting that we've also been looking at Johnny Cardoso. Cardoso plays for Real Betis. Is there some kind of deal or shenanigans to be done with the Antony situation, where we buy Cardoso and then they can use the money that we give them to buy Antony? So not a swap deal, because that doesn't help us with PSR, but we buy Cardoso. They then got the cash and they can say, okay, well, do you want to sell us Antony? And we're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll do that. 23-year-old defensive midfielder, does look pretty decent as well. Personally, I would take Ederson over Cardoso, but it doesn't mean that he's not a bad player or somebody to come in as a backup to kind of help play behind Ugarte. But again, I suppose some of that will depend on Casemiro. On Casemiro, actually, I haven't done a slide for this, but Romano was saying that, obviously they're impressed with his recent form, but if they get a big offer for Casemiro, then anything's possible in the summer. So that's, again, one to kind of potentially keep an eye on. But give us your thoughts on Cardoso. It'll be interesting, again, to hear what you've got to say regarding that. Now, another player that we've been heavily linked with recently is Mastantuono. So, Manchester United want to trigger Franco Mastantuono's £38 million release clause. United intend to take him as soon as he turns 18 in August. Now, that came from some fairly decent South American reporters. But Sean Conley, who I think is a decent source, said that Manchester United's interest in Franco Mastantuono has accelerated since September. So, initially admired by Dan Ashworth. That's interesting. That's not to say officials are moving towards sealing a deal, but they are keen to avoid a similar occurrence to Julian Alvarez. Now, that's really interesting, because if you remember, Julian Alvarez was a player that was recommended to United by Ralph Rangnick when he was here. Surprisingly, he was available for around £25 million, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it was a relatively low fee. United decided, we don't want to kind of do those sort of deals, because, the way we were ran before under Arnold, Murta, and, all of those kind of people were like, we don't want to go for these sort of hidden gems that cost very little money. We'd rather just blow all of our money. We'd rather give Ajax £100 million for Antony instead of actually using your brain and looking at these sort of players as well. And that also, that United see Mastantuono as a similar kind of deal, where, it's an opportunity to get a very talented young player for a relatively decent price. I think it's still a little bit high, but that's the release clause, and, River Plate don't have to sell him for less than it, and probably won't sell him for less than the release clause. So them's the cards we've been dealt, so we have to kind of deal with it as well. The more I kind of research and watch his stuff, I really think this is a special player. I think he's got really, really talented. But that's just my 10 pence worth. You can give me your thoughts in the comments below as well. But I think that, so they're kind of worried that if they don't go for him, then it could be one where in a few years' time, he's being sold for hundreds of £1 million, or he's, turned into one of the best players in the world. And we were sat here thick scratching our heads saying, why didn't we just pay the 38 million quid release clause for him? What a bargain that could be. So yeah, that's definitely one to keep an eye on, because there's no smoke without fire. And there's been a lot of smoke regarding Mastantuono recently as well. And maybe that's where they're going to kind of player sales. We were talking in yesterday's video regarding if we get Champions League football or with player sales, instead of getting an upgrade on the players, we might go for more players. So maybe Mastantuono's one like that, because we can't do it till the end of the transfer window anyway because of his age. So whether they're going to look and say, well, if we can generate player sales and we get the increased cash, we'll get, rather than going from Diallo to Osman, which I know some of you might disagree with. It is what it is. Instead of doing that, we'll get Mastantuono, and then you've got Diallo, Cunha, Mastantuono, rather than, Osman and Cunha. Potentially, that might be how they're kind of looking at it, but really interesting player. Give us your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's go through some exit news next. So, there's a growing sense Kobbie Mainoo will stay at Manchester United, although there is a contract situation with him that needs to be addressed by the club. That came from David Ornstein via his Q&A yesterday. Now, in the Q&A, he also said that Rasmus Hojlund leaving Manchester United this summer is plausible. Fabrizio Romano overnight has said that Rasmus Hojlund would love to stay at Manchester United and compete for a spot, but if the club sign a new striker, it could be a possibility for him to leave. His future is not decided yet. Napoli and Juventus are tracking him, so that's interesting from Romano, suggesting that obviously we get another striker, and there's a possibility that Rasmus Hojlund could leave. Napoli, Juventus are tracking him as well. There was a kind of report, I'm sure I read, I didn't know the credibility though, that Napoli's sporting director has flown to London to have chats with teams and clubs and who knows what. Obviously the Garnacho situation, we're going to go through the news on him next, but could Hojlund be one that if we do bring in Diallo and Cunha, he's obviously further down the pecking order, would they be looking to sell him? The problem with that, I mean, I would agree with that. He's been in terrible form this season, but we'd need, his book value is £38 million, so we'd need to get at least £38 million for Hojlund in order to not make a PSR loss on him as well. But we need to keep an eye on it, so it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens with the striker situation. Now, David Ornstein in the Q&A also said regarding Garnacho, when he was asked directly any updates on Garnacho, and he said, yes, we understand this is this to be highly possible if proposals are deemed suitable by Manchester United and Garnacho himself. So David Ornstein in his Q&A said that he understands it's highly possible Garnacho will go if they get a bid and Garnacho himself wants to leave. I don't necessarily think that's a surprise. We've been hearing stories for Garnacho potential exit for weeks and months, even going all the way back to January, where there was a possibility he was to be sold. Like I said, personally, I've come to terms with the fact that Garnacho might be sold in the summer. And it is what it is. It is what it is. I just hope they're doing it for the right reasons, which is for football reasons, not financial reasons. Because if Ineos and United, because there is a narrative around there that Ineos just want to buy and sell young players, which I don't go along with, because there's no evidence to suggest that that's the case. Maybe they want to sell Garnacho because they don't see him as a fit for the team and for the philosophy and for the style of play going forward. And it's an opportunity to make money on a young player rather than holding on to him for too long and his value potentially decreasing in the summer. Like, how often have we not sold a player when we should have sold them, kept them for too long, and then it goes beyond the point of no return, and then you just end up letting a player run his contract down. Case in point at the moment, Victor Lindelof, who we should have sold about 2 or 3 years ago when maybe he had a bit of value. Instead, we didn't. And we've just kept him, and now he's running his contract down and leaving for a free transfer. And there's been countless examples of United not selling at the right moments and holding on to players for a year or two too long, and then their value decreases. So maybe they're looking at it to say, well, actually, is he going to, is he massively going to improve? Do we think, what is he going to be worth in the future? Does he fit the team? Does he fit the style of play? All of these kind of question marks. I don't go along with that kind of narrative that we're just doing it for profit, because, there's other players you could sell in the team that would make way more money than Garnacho, like Bruno Fernandes, for example. How much would Bruno Fernandes make? And he would be classed as homegrown profit now, because We've paid off his kind of transfer fee. He has no value on the book market. Like, you could get way more. So that suggests to me that they're not just looking to sell players to make money. It might just be they're selling Garnacho because they don't think he's going to fit the team and the system and the style of play that we want going forward, or he wants to go himself. That's just my opinion on it, though. I know some of you would disagree with that in the comments. Some of you might agree. Now, Romano, though, has also said that Manchester United believe Alejandro Garnacho is an important player with a big potential. It would take a significant offer to persuade the club to sell him. He is not a 30 to 35 million pound player as well, which is good. So, because if we do sell Garnacho, we need to get value for money for him, and how we kind of see, because I think there is a player there and he's got bags of potential, but now might be the time to kind of get a big offer. And if you're lowballing like 30 million pounds would be ridiculous for me for Garnacho. The only way I would do that sort of deal, if it included all the clauses, like a sell-on clause and a buyback clause, then I would be cool with that kind of figure. But if it's not, then, you know, double it, in my opinion. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. And then finally, let's go through the goalkeeper situation. So on Onana, Romano has said there is interest from Saudi clubs for Andre Onana, but United will only consider selling him if they receive a good offer. They don't want to lose any money for what they paid Inter 2 years ago for him, but this is a story to watch in the summer. So Romano suggesting that we'll only sell him if we get what we need, or get this kind of book value, or get a good offer for Andre Onana, because we're going to need to go out and spend big on a number one goalkeeper then as well, because the plan is, we haven't all seen the other day that I think we are looking at goalkeepers, but we're looking at more backup goalkeepers or younger profile of goalkeepers coming, not necessarily number one. So we're going to need to get a big bid from Onana, because we're going to have to go out and get a number one goalkeeper, which is going to cost way more than what we're currently preparing to pay, I think, for a goalkeeper. And then just finally on the goalkeeper, Manchester United are working on a deal to sign Preston North End goalkeeper Freddie Woodman on a free transfer. He would replace Tom Heaton, who is set to leave the club this summer. I did bring you that news the other day, actually, that we were linked with Woodman, potentially seen as a third choice goalkeeper, so I'm not going to wet the bed regarding that. He's English, homegrown. It would be a direct replacement for Tom Heaton, somebody to come in and help with the homegrown kind of quota. TalkSport, though, was saying that Brighton goalkeeper Carl Rushworth, 23, is among the options being explored by Manchester United. Tom Heaton and Altay Bayindir are both expected to leave United this summer. Brighton value Rushworth in excess of £5 million. He expected to push for a move. So again, that could be potentially one to keep an eye on, although it did come from TalkSport, but there's been a couple of other places that have kind of said that maybe we're looking at Carl Rushworth, £5 million from Brighton, and again, that would be a backup goalkeeper, I believe, to kind of come in as well. So there's two potential options as a third choice, or second and third choice, potentially to keep an eye on. But again, it came from TalkSport, so I would say take that with a pinch of salt. But give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video, because that's you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.